The 49ers are deep into their OTAs, and they are showing off their new revamped defensive line. Much younger, I might add, because the 49ers let go of 3 of their starting 4 defensive linemen. You have Leonard Floyd, that's no longer here. You have Malik Collins, no longer here. You have Javon Hargrave, no longer here. A lot of money there, but also a lot of age as well, and honestly, a lot of injuries. And the 49ers are showcasing a new revamped defensive line. We saw the draft where they invested a lot in that defensive line, from Michael Williams all the way to Alfred Collins and CJ West, to try to beef up that center. So let's be honest, the 49ers defensive line, specifically their run defense, was the weak link last year. And if you can run against this team, which the NFC is known for, running the ball, then guess what? The 49ers are not going to get very far. But that's not it. The 49ers also traded for Bryce Huff. Now, Bryce Huff, as you might remember, played for the Jets a couple years ago, none other than under Robert Saleh. Now, Robert Saleh got out great production from Bryce Huff. In fact, Bryce Huff, that's when he had 10 sacks. That's when he led the NFL in his pass rush rate at 21.8%. And then the Eagles signed him to a 3-year, $51 million deal. Why did they do that? Well, as you know, they've been trying to replace Hassan Reddick on the outside. Now, they're already stacked across the board, but that defensive end, they've been trying to get additional pressure from their defense. And that's why they signed Bryce Huff to a 3-year, $51 million deal, thinking he can repeat that same kind of production that he did with the Jets on their defensive line. The problem is that didn't happen. He had 2.5 sacks last year, and thus the 49ers are getting him for a mid-round pick. And in fact, the Eagles are paying more than half of his guaranteed salary this year. So the 49ers are getting a high production defensive end under Robert Saleh for a 5th-round pick that could go to a 4th-round pick. And if it goes to a 4th-round pick, that's good news for the 49ers, because that means he produced throughout the year. Now, Bryce Huff is, you're not starting from scratch with Michael Williams. With Michael Williams, you don't want to add too much pressure as that 1st-round pick. Now, he might produce. He looks like a mammoth, a beast, especially when standing next to Trent Williams. He's taller than Trent Williams, and you could tell he's pretty yoked. But you don't want to add that much pressure to a rookie. So bringing in a veteran like Bryce Huff, not only does he know Robert Saleh's system, but also he's shown that he can produce. And to be honest, Nick Bosa hasn't had that much productivity on the opposite side of him since D Ford was there, and only when he was healthy. And so now you have Michael Williams, now you have Bryce Huff that are there. You have CJ West, you had Alfred Collins, but also you have some of the existing veterans that were there beforehand. You have Kalia Davis. You still have several other players, Kevin Givens, that are still there in the middle. I anticipate they're probably going to bring in another veteran, but they have a lot on that defensive line. In fact, they typically suit up about 10 defensive linemen on game days, but they have about 12 very capable defensive linemen. So something's going to give there, but I can also see them adding additional value in the middle because we know they like that rotation, that 8-man rotation constant, keep those guys fresh, and I think they're well on their way. What was once a weak spot has the potential to be one of their strong suits. Now, we don't know because there are a lot of rookies on this defensive line, and it could be very great, but the best thing that the 49ers did was bring in Bryce Huff, because that adds a veteran. It adds experience to that defensive line to where the rookies don't feel like they have to produce week in and week out. They can learn the system. They can learn to be in the right spot. They can work on their technique. They can learn from Nick Bosa. They can go against Trent Williams and figure out what are the different takes, what are the different gives. Also, what are the tells, because defensive ends have specific tells. So Trent Williams can work with them on what he sees, and that way they can become better pass rushers. And you know what? We've already seen a lot of things. We've seen Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy both said from the podium that they are watching old film from themselves on what made them so successful. So having this kind of hunger for being the best and going back to your roots seems to be paying off. There's not a lot of drama outside of, Brandon Ayuk and his social media. You take away his social media, everything should be pretty good. But ultimately, we know who the starting quarterback is. He's paid early. We're not worrying about Fred Warner or George Kittle potentially not being here for the long haul. You have Trent Williams here during OTAs, which he typically isn't. You have Christian McCaffrey looking spry. And I know there's a lot of conversation about Christian McCaffrey. Oh, he's not as fast. He's lost a step. That's going to happen. You're going to lose a step as you get older. But one of the things about Christian McCaffrey, it wasn't the speed that separated him. It was his vision. It was his ability to move and basically play receiver, play running back, play quarterback if he wanted to. He is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. And so what if he doesn't run 22 miles per hour when running? So what if it's dropped to 21? I mean, Christian McCaffrey can do what he does so well. He doesn't have to have a game-breaking run every single game where he scores an 8-yard touchdown. What he does well is he wears down the defense. And let's be honest here. Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a lot of wear and tear in the past year and a half. Why? Because after the Super Bowl, we know he had his Achilles injury, played a couple of games, got hurt again because he landed on his knee. So he didn't have the entire year of wear and tear last year. Plus, they didn't make the playoffs, so he's had a lot of time to recover. And I think we're going to see the Christian McCaffrey of old. It's okay to say that he's lost a step. Who doesn't as you get older? But to say he's a different running back now just isn't accurate. I believe Christian McCaffrey is going to show out. I don't think he's going to win the rushing title this year, but I think he will lead the league in touchdowns again. I do think he's going to eclipse the 1,500 yards again. I think he's going to be a member of the 2,000-yard club of all-purpose yards again. That's how well I think McCaffrey is going to be doing this year. He looks spry. All of his offensive linemen are here this year. Jake Brendel broke into the top 25 centers. After 2 years ago, he was ranked 40 out of all centers. He ranked 24. Now, we know 24 out of 32 isn't great, but that's progress. And so the 49ers strategy has been, we're not spending money on the offensive line. Yes, we'll do it on the left tackle to protect the quarterback, but the rest of the other four, sorry, Brock, you're on your own. But the fact that there's some development, Jake Brendel, I think he also benefited from having Dominic Pooney on his right side. Dominic Pooney is an absolute stud and was a steal at round 3. But I think having him there really helps out. So your weak spots are really like kind of that Ben Bart's left guard, because you don't know. In his 2 games he played, even though he got hurt, there was some promise in the run game. And then Colton McKivitz, who's nothing to brag about, but you know what? He did much better last year than he's done in years past. And so you start seeing the pieces come together. The 49ers have the easiest schedule in the league this year. The NFC West didn't get much better. You have the Seahawks that picked up Sam Darnold, who is not a great runner. But you know what? If anybody knows Sam Darnold, it is Kyle Shanahan. Now, did Kyle Shanahan lose to Sam Darnold? Yes, he did. But also, they know how to attack Sam Darnold. They know how to attack that. DK Metcalf is no longer part of the Seahawks. So guess what? You don't have to worry about that part. And so Kyler Murray with the Cardinals is going to Kyler Murray, and definitely overpaid. And then you have the Rams, who I think are always competitive with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, but he's also not getting any younger as well. That's always the team that I think the 49ers and Rams are always the ones that are back and forth. You have a healthy Rams, you have a smart Sean McVay, anything is possible. In fact, Matthew Stafford, if he didn't have as many injuries, he'd probably be, again, a top 5 quarterback in this league, but he definitely deals with a lot of back spasms, injuries, and it comes down to that offensive line again. And so I think the 49ers are poised to take the NFC West this year, especially considering their schedule, but also the division they're in didn't get much better this year. And so, granted, the 49ers didn't get much better this year either. Hopefully they nailed on the draft. If they did, that changes things. But also there's still some drama in the wide receiver room. There's not a whole lot of experience in the wide receiver room outside of Jawan Jennings because Brandon Ayuk is hurt. Then you have Ricky Pearsall, who is going into year 2. Yes, you have Demarcus Robinson, who could prove to be something. I'll be surprised if Tariq Owens ends up making the roster. That's a big possibility. Jacob Cowling, is he going to go ahead and take that next step? I think there's a lot of opportunities here with the 49ers, and I think time will tell what happens and honestly who starts to separate themselves. But I think the 49ers are poised, and let's see what this year holds. Well, that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.